Welcome to Knowledge for the Soul, hosted by none other than Kevin Harris Jr. Music done by Michael Lynch. I want to start off by introducing this podcast, being that it's episode 1 and the purpose for which it has been made. Knowledge for the Soul is about connecting the knowledge to applications so that ultimately you can gratify the soul. I think generalistically, it's fair to say that people want to do good. They want to do good for themselves. They want to do good for others, aka the soul wants to do good. But oftentimes we fall short. And it's not because of what the soul intends, but it is oftentimes due to lack of education. So I believe that this forum here is going to be a great way to simplify a lot of the concepts that'll bring positive change in people's lives. That being said, I won't take too much of your time today. Today's episode 1, is titled Changing the Narrative. Essentially, what I've come across, and I'm sure that you have too, are what people refer to as negative people. And I don't believe that they're actually negative in the sense, but more like unaware that they get full control over the narrative. Now, when I say full control over the narrative, there's certain objective parts to every story that cannot change, such as, for lack of a better example, if I were to place a water bottle on my desk, well, there's no changing that narrative as far as that specific event, but the meaning behind it, why I placed the water bottle on my desk, and all the other parts beyond that, well, that is open to subjection, or subjectivity is what I mean to say. And so when I talk about changing the narrative, I do not refer to changing objective events. That kind of thinking obscures reality, and it does affect people negatively, including the person themselves, because you can't be as effective if you're not observing reality for what it is. And if you are, and you're still changing the objective events in terms of how you articulate them, well, that's straight up lying. So for some whom are considered negative thinking, I challenge you to really think about what it is that I'm communicating today. And the biggest thing is that with changing the narrative, it's important. It's important because it affects your life. A lot of people, they are fearful, or they'll make the argument that, oh, I can't change the way I look at this. This is just the way that it is. Or they will take a situation that happened and they will learn from it through generalization, in which case everyone who does this will experience this. A good example would be if you're on a jog and you're running and a car clips you. That is a fairly rare event. I won't say it's the rarest, but it's a fairly rare event. So an example of someone taking the narrative and generalizing with that would be, I was hit by a car on my run, so I don't go on runs. So that'd be an overgeneralization. But more than that, this story example provides another opportunity to explain what it means to change the narrative. So if this person is taking this generalistic view and they stop running, if for that reason they give up cardio altogether, well, then that's going to negatively impact their health. And that's part of the story that they have decided to write, whether it's conscious or unconscious. I would say more than not, these stories kind of get written unconsciously. So if they are not to do cardio, not only that, their health will suffer, and a bunch of other associated with cardiovascular disease issues will occur down the line. Now, let's say, for example, they choose this narrative. I'm not going to run anymore, and they consciously or unconsciously choose to not do cardio, right? Not only are they going to hold that story, that viewpoint for themselves, but they are, whether intentionally or not, going to convey that to anyone who looks up to them for any kind of advice, okay? So in a sense, your narrative is now negatively impacting other people. That's why changing the story for your benefit and the benefit of others is key. A good example would be, okay, I got clipped by a car by running, So now I swim instead for cardio. And I recommend that others swim because swimming not only allows you to get the cardiovascular exercise that you need, but it's easier on the joints. And obviously the risk for being hit by a car is definitely or significantly diminished. So that's an example right there of how you can take that event and turn it into something that not only benefits yourself, but benefits others. Now, obviously, this is kind of a mild example. In this life, we deal with pretty heavy experiences. I mean, emotionally, whether the ego is involved in terms of amplifying it or not. If you were to lose a leg, if you were to lose an arm, if something were to happen to you mentally, or someone were to do something that's considered a crime to you, whether it be rape or etc. And I apologize if I'm triggering anyone listening to this, but what I'm trying to get at is the more intense the experience, the more difficult it is to change the narrative. But I believe that you must. Not only do I believe that changing the narrative will give you a future, but the quicker that you can do it, the faster you can heal. There's nothing wrong with controlling the subjective parts of your narrative. You're not lying to yourself. No matter what, and I learned this in my English 101 class, no matter how objectively you try to write a paper, there'll be a shred of subjectivity. That's a given. It doesn't matter. Even the most official or most subjective of papers have a subjective element. So by believing in this subjective element, you're not lying to yourself as long as the objective elements are there. So pick a good narrative and believe in it. And the quicker that you can do this, the faster you'll recover from even more intense experiences. And it's not easy all the time. And it's not easy for me either. I don't sit here from a standpoint of, hey, I can do this. Everyone else can do it. No, I stand here humbled and blessed to have this platform to share. And I hope that this knowledge that has helped me absolutely in my life, without getting personal about it, will help you, whatever your circumstances, whether it is work, whether it is in a relationships, whatever it is. I hope that you could change the narrative and give yourself room to grow as a person. And not only that, have a narrative that will positively impact other people. Like if I'm telling you this story, it will impact you because you'll learn something from it and you can bring that to the world and for yourself and for others. And I think that that's key, because when you have a negative narrative and you choose to hold on to it for whatever reason that it may be, ultimately you negatively impact your health. Not only are you going to experience more stress from a result of holding this narrative, it'll stack on. If you add other negative narratives, it'll stack on and creating this stress. And we all know when you're stressed, and this is something that's been proved scientifically, you're going to be thinking not as clear as you would if you weren't stressed. That's a given. So to maintain that calm sense and that sense of fulfillment and that sense of being a positive character in the context of life, you have to create a positive narrative. You have to keep the objective events the same, but you have to take the subjectivity of it and give yourself context that not only can help yourself, but help others, because ultimately that's what it's all about. We all want to feel good about ourselves. We all want to feel good about our lives. And a lot of people who don't realize that they're in control of whether or not they feel good about their lives. A term to keep in mind is called self-command, complete control of your emotions. I believe that one key for that is in controlling the narrative. And your mental health is also key, because not only does changing the narrative help you learn, it will stop you from repeating the same mistake. I see this all the time. People not creating a positive narrative for themselves and or others. And then the same mistakes keep happening and they keep feeling negative due to the impact of these experiences, which you cannot change. And it stacks and to a point where some people don't see a way out. They've lost faith in themselves or faith in life, in its ability to bring about the most joyous of experiences. I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I absolutely want to stress that changing the narrative is key. It's key in your life. It's key in relationships, even with people that you don't like. Changing the narrative will help you and help them depending on how you do it. Not for the sake of someone you don't like, you want to do that for them, but for your sake. And also, given the fact that, we live in a social world, and depending on the degree of the offense that caused you to not like this person, you may very well have to work with them. And they may never even know that you don't like them because of the narrative that you choose. And they may even help you out when you need it, when you don't expect it. And in a sense, intentionally or unintentionally, make up for the wrong that they've done. It's key. It's absolutely key. It's essential. It's about your mental health. And this is knowledge for the soul. I think that feeling like these things are happening to you and the way that you're viewing them is outside of your control is a source of comfort, because it is scarier and more challenging to look at things objectively oftentimes. And that's okay. That's normal. The fact that we can write our own narrative is scary to people because we like to know things, and we don't like to not only feel as though we have the responsibility to write this narrative. It's scary because there's just so much possibility and so much thinking that will be involved in order to do it and to do it right. But I promise you, everybody gets control of how they view their narrative. Those who do it are viewed as optimistic or whatever. But you know what? More than that, you're in control of your life in terms of the context behind the objective events that's occurring. And other people, when they talk to you, when they meet you, when you portray your story, that affects other people's perceptions of you. And they're going to treat you more towards the way that you want to be treated because they hear your narrative. So keep that in mind, folks. And that will conclude today's episode for Knowledge for the Soul podcast called Changing the Narrative. Definitely links for the socials will be all over the place on my profile. Follow everything that you have that's there, please. I appreciate it. My goal is going to be one podcast a month. So I look forward to you guys tuning in. This is this has been fun for me because I've kind of practiced verbally what I was going to do, but I didn't write a schematic as I usually would. And I'm really proud of the way that it turned out. So that being said, remember, you're in control of your narrative. You're in complete control of your narrative. Write yourself a beautiful story. You're the star in a movie, but you're not the only star in the movie. You got a lot of co-stars. But try to write something that makes your star shine really bright, and so bright that it can affect your co-stars' brightness and increase that a little bit, and keep to that methodology. I promise you, anything less is essentially harmful to your mental health, harmful to your life, harmful to how you can construct it and be happy. There isn't a one recipe for happiness, but this is absolutely a key thing. Thank you guys for dealing with my know-it-all attitude, and thank you for tuning in. And next episode will be on the importance of social connections. And I look forward to talking with that about you. Again, shout out to Michael Lynch for the music. He's amazing. I am so blessed to have him and his consistency more than anything. As we all know, that's not something that's guaranteed with each relationship, but he has absolutely excelled on that front. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you next time for episode 2 of Knowledge for the Soul.